Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Hey, and welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and we got Diego back in the house again to review an article that I found online called Top 7 Most Debatable Star Wars Topics, I guess. It was a article I found through the StarWars.com blog, and I believe it was published in 2015. So we talk about those things on the list, and we just have some fun, giving our opinion and debating things like midichlorians and who shot first, and all the big, solid debates that have been in existence for ages now, from what it feels like. We actually talked about it so long that we had to make this a solid single episode intentionally. We were planning on watching some Clone Wars and just didn't end up getting around to it. So let's go meet up Diego and chat all about these highly debatable topics. All right, let's get down there.
Another happy landing.
Thank you again, Diego, for coming back on Star Wars Escape Pod.
No problem, man. Glad to be back.
Yeah, so we found a cool article here about seven most debatable topics that fans typically argue about. What's it called? Seven topics Star Wars fans love to debate.
About.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of them are kind of, one-sided and, there's a definite answer. Some of them could spend hours talking about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the first one on our list here, Han and Greedo.
Oh my goodness. This is it. This is the one that drives people absolutely
kind of
bonkers.
Self-explanatory, if you ask me. All you got to do is go on YouTube. There is a video of all the releases. They show you the original 1977 one, where we don't even see a blaster shot. In the original, if you look it up, they're in the cantina, they're just talking, and then Greedo just kind of gets blown up after Han Solo says, "I'll bet you have," and then he just engulfs into flames. In the other ones, I think the next one was 97. Excuse me. The 97 one was we see Greedo take a shot, and then this is slow down. Just after Greedo shot hits the wall, Han Solo immediately fires. The 2004 release, we see them both kind of fire at the same time, but after Han Solo's shot hits Greedo fires one more as he's kind of going down, and then kind of the same thing with the Blu-ray edition from 2011. But yeah,
so
this one,
basically in the original, and there's a solid 2 frames before this happens.
Yeah.
But if you watch that video with all 4 of them pieced together, and you stop on the right frame, there is a bit of a 2-frame gap where you see Greedo, just like the explosive dummy version. The guy's not in the costume anymore, and it's just a costume rigged to blow kind of thing.
Yeah.
They've got explosives packed in the chest, I would imagine, of some kind, or pyro effects of some kind. Mm-hmm. And for those 2 frames, he's just kind of stationary. His arm is just reaching out a little bit, like Slender Man or something like that. And then you see just a big explosion. So we assume that Han, shot him in the chest, underneath the table, somehow, and that was that. That was the end of Greedo. And then the next thing you know is he's slumping on the table, and boom, he's getting up. He's tossing the barkeeper his coin. And in every other version, we see that other perspective from the side of the table where Greedo has his gun pointed over, and Greedo shoots first every single time.
Yeah.
Shoots first like a fraction of a second faster. And there's a few frames of like difference when it starts in every single version of the re-releases. So in the VHS special edition, in the DVD special edition, in the Blu-ray final edition,
Yeah.
which is the one that you'll get on digital, is the one that you'll find on Disney Plus. It's all the same. It's Greedo shoots first, Han shoots slightly after, and he cocks his head a little bit. Not that he avoids the blaster bolt completely. It's not that he avoids it by moving his head that quickly. Like, he just kind of like instant reaction, tilts his head a little bit. It's a delayed reaction. It's a delayed reaction is what it is.
Exactly.
So it's not like he is like insanely skilled that he's able to move his head to the right and avoid a blaster bolt. Like, no way. No, he's just responding to the shot that came at his face. But he gets the shot. But I guess a lot of, so what it says here on the website, this is the StarWars.com blogspot site. They wrote an article on this. Let's just read it out. Han shot first, Greedo shot first. Han was the only one who shot. Pick a side. The unfortunate event that transpired in the Mos Eisley Cantina comes up within fandom and even with people who don't consider themselves to be Star Wars fans. And even though the answer is out there, it's presented in a couple of different ways. So it depends on your certain point of view. And this is key here, a certain point of view. This is key through almost anything in Star Wars. It's like an open statement of saying like, hey, whatever you believe is kind of like what you want to believe.
It's all a matter of your own opinion.
It's all a matter of your own opinion. And that's the advice that Luke gets as well. But we get, in the special editions, I find it funny that we get a different point of view, a different camera view. Like, literally, it's a different perspective of like what is actually going on. And the perspective that we have from the original you can't even see it. Like, with all the pyrotechnics going on, you can't even see Greedo let one off, if he even did, right? So what if he did let one off back then in 77 and nobody saw it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, with technology now, like we just saw, they show you 4 frames of each release, and you can clearly see in the original 77 one, he says, "I'll bet you have," and then we don't. When it's slowed down, it doesn't even look like there's a blaster shot. It's just Greedo just kind of blows up,
right?
and
totally.
Pyrotechnics go off, and then he just, he falls down, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we see. But in
fact, if you were to go even more accurate, in the original release, did you notice the hand that I mentioned? The hand that he had reached out over the table, the Slender Man style. It was the pyrotechnic dummy. He didn't even have a blaster in his hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, technically, if you were to go original to the core, he's essentially just killing an unarmed man.
Pretty much.
So it's like, do you want to make Han a cold-blooded killer like that? Or is it true that Greedo shot first and Han shot slightly after and, defended himself? I don't know. There's a huge debate on this. But
definitely.
What do you think is what do you think is like the best? Because obviously George wanted us to see with the Blu-rays his final edit. That was his final edit to the films. It was his last changes that he made. And he didn't change the very debatable topic for over 15 years on whether or not, or about 15 years on like whether or not this should be a thing. Mm-hmm. So he didn't change it. He was adamant about keeping it. What do you think about this scene?
In my opinion, 100% Greedo shot first. However, there's like, you obviously won't notice it that well whilst you're watching the movie, but if you slow it down, you can clearly see Greedo fires one off, and as his shot is on his way towards Han Solo, Han blasts him, and then you kind of see like Greedo gets shot, and then as he's kind of going down, his blaster fires off another one. So, in my opinion, definitely Greedo shot first, 100%.
Now, do you want Greedo to shoot first? That's the other thing I want to ask.
Do I want him to shoot first?
Yeah, like, are you cool with him shooting first in the last release?
That's what my eyes see. So yeah, I would say I'm okay with that.
Okay,
that's how I see
so
it.
for you then, because I've heard this before, is that for a lot of people, it changes the whole way they look at the movie. It changes, like, you know, the character of Han being this cocky gunslinger guy that he's the second to shoot. Like, it's just less awesome for a lot of people to watch the movie, and also because like they hate seeing that it's been changed since the way that they used to know it. But for so many people now, and since the 90s, you know, Greedo's been shooting first. So I mean, we're talking about like the old school fans here, but for a lot of them, they're pretty upset about it. So what would you say to them?
I mean, I don't know. I can't really think of what to say to them. I mean, you see, in my opinion, I've seen some old school guys where they're very in their ways and they're like, no, it wasn't even a shot. It's just the original. It's just pyrotechnics, which is true. We just saw it. And then you might have the guys who are like, yeah, but you know, I like to see all these, you know, edits and developments, and I'll go with the time sort of thing, sort of mentality of thinking, which is cool. But I don't know, like we said earlier, I really do think it's up to the person watching the movie and how they want to view it. Yeah. Much like all the other Star Wars movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you know, for me, like, this whole thing, it just doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that other people have a problem with it.
Yeah,
because
like it's just so minuscule.
So minute. I mean, like, hey, like, Han wins. Like, either way, Han's the one that's still standing up at the table at the end of the day. Like,
it doesn't,
it doesn't matter who shot first. Like,
it's such a minuscule point in that movie. It's so nothing.
It's for
just
sure.
an argument
like,
with no.
It really doesn't bother me, and like Han's not by any means like my favorite character, but like he does, you know, I like to think that, like, yes, it would be cool if he got the draw on him and shoot him before Greedo even squeezes one off. Yeah. But at the same time, for me, it doesn't ruin the movie that it's been changed
so many times.
Yeah. B, I think how this is the way that George wanted us to see it. Like, that's a big reason on its own. Like, he's changed it so many times, and he's never changed it away from what he's already known to be a very debatable scene. Yeah. And then, you know, lastly, I don't think it majorly affects the character of Han Solo. Like, I don't think this is a game-changing moment for his character. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if whether he kills a guy straight up before he squeezes one off or not, I mean, I'm sure it's happened before. I'm sure he's killed a guy before he can get a shot on. I'm pretty sure in Solo, they did do some fan service to that. But, you know, just talking about this scene and excluding Solo from the debate, I don't think it ruins the movie.
Not at all.
No. So I'm killing this one off the debatable list here. Yeah. But okay, second one up. What do we got? Midi-chlorians. Want to read that off?
Yeah, that's a hot topic.
That's a big hot topic. Yeah.
Well, the article says midi-chlorians were introduced into Star Wars canon in The Phantom Menace. The fact that their canon doesn't stop fans from talking about the point of midi-chlorian levels, how they affect Force users, and why they weren't mentioned in the original trilogy. Now, all of that is true, but again, for me at least, I saw episodes 4, 5, 6 first, and then I watched the prequels.
Mm-hmm. Well, for us, like, growing up, that's mostly what was there.
Yeah. I
mean, until we were about 4 or 5, then the Phantom Menace was kind of a thing.
Yeah, but we were just still, 4 or 5. You don't understand anything that goes on
totally
in the movies,
not. No,
right?
But I mean, we were exposed to Star Wars before.
Yes.
Before midi-chlorians were there.
Definitely.
in the canon,
Definitely. Yeah. And the way I've kind of, my point of view on this argument is kind of like, okay, the prequels, they speak about midi-chlorians force levels, how they affect every user, blah blah blah. Okay, cool. Now the originals, we never had that. The way I see it, Order 66 comes along in Revenge of the Sith. Jedi start dying. This ancient mentality, this ancient way of thinking, just this lifestyle, whatever have you, is dying. And in episode 4, it is pretty much dead. What do we have? Luke and Vader and Palpatine. That's it. We don't have anything else. By those films, any sort of knowledge, the way I see it now, any sort of knowledge of midichlorians or the Old Republic or any of the old Jedi ways, besides Yoda, is kind of washed out the window. We don't get it, right? So yes, they were made before, and yes, I can see where some people are like, oh, it doesn't make sense because it was made after, but there's nothing you can do about it because they were made after the fact. So the way I've come to terms with it is I think that Lucas kind of did this intentionally. I don't know if this is how he did it, but in my eyes, I think he did it to make it like what I just said, where in the prequels you have all these traditions, let's just say, that are, you know, set in stone. But as soon as Order 66 comes along, people start dying and stuff. In the originals, we don't have that because all that it's been destroyed, you know, like it's gone. So really the only person who would know about it would be Yoda, but perhaps guilt, perhaps the pain of all that. Maybe he didn't want to explain it to Luke, whatever. That's another way of looking at it. But again, for me, not a big thing.
No,
Yeah.
I think midi-chlorians are okay. First of all, I'm on the side of the fence that is actually like very much pro midi-chlorian, and hear me out, because you know, a lot of the old fans hate it because it gives reason to the Force almost to exist in a Jedi. Now, I've heard the argument about how before we had midi-chlorians as a thing, a lot of fans were under the impression that anybody could be a Jedi. And this is not the case. It wasn't the case back in 1977. It's not the case now. You know, there's a quote from Obi-Wan Kenobi about how Vader helped the Emperor hunt down what is it again? He said, a young pupil of mine named Darth Vader helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Order. You know, so it says something along those lines.
Yeah.
So if there's a Jedi Order, there's a code, there's a whole thing going on. Like, how come everyone's not freaking a part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like why, if it's wiped out, why doesn't somebody just start it back up again? If it's so easy for someone to learn the Force because they have the ability to use it, why is there an issue? And 20 years of hardly any Jedi presence in the galaxy. And as far as we know, back in 1977, when we got, you know, Ben Kenobi teaching Luke the ways of the Force, and then in Empire we had Yoda. Like, how come the Jedi are so scarce, right? If the Force can be in everything and everybody without the ability to use it physically through midi-chlorians, like, how come there aren't more Jedi just popping up around the galaxy, you know, using their powers to fight evil, kind of like superheroes, right? Like in Marvel, we get so many, or in DC Comics, like we get, you know, these people with abilities that just kind of use them for the good of mankind. So like, why in Star Wars is it a thing to, if you have the Force, you know, you're naturally either going to be accepted in the Jedi Order, or until the Dark Times where you might have the Force and you might just, you know, be unaware of its presence in your life, kind of thing. But like, you know what I mean? Like the midi-chlorians really kind of add this element of uniqueness and like almost destiny to these characters, like to these Jedi. They also, if you start talking about the will of the Force, which is a huge thing through Star Wars, the will of the Force is it's like a conscience. You know, there's a conscience behind the Force, and the will is brought upon by the wills of the Force. And the wills of the Force are these beings and these people of some kind. They're like these mystical creatures or whatever. And we haven't really like got a whole lot about these wills, but in the Clone Wars they do go on about these priestesses, which these priestesses from the Beyond that kind of teach Jedi, specific Jedi only, and how to become immortal, kind of thing, to live after death. And that in itself is a gift, but that's also brought upon by the wills. The wills are the ones that enabled the Chosen One to be a thing. Like the wills are behind everything. It's almost like this unstoppable force that an unstoppable force that whatever you do, you're never going to change the will of the Force, no matter what. Like it's like trying to escape God's wrath. It's just not going to happen. Like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And if Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Anakin and Luke, they're destined to be able to use the Force, naturally there's got to be some sort of biological connection from a person to this mystical energy field. So what's the key, right? What's the bridge? And that is the midichlorian. The midichlorians is what enable a Jedi to use the Force practically. Now Yoda says that the Force is in all living things, which is true. Like it's a force that flows through everything and binds the galaxy together. Mm-hmm. But it's the midichlorians in a Jedi that enable them to use powers like telekinetic powers, telepathic powers, psychosis, leaping tall buildings and a single bound, like force jumping and being able to use it practically. Sensing things, all that stuff. It's the things that are supernatural is what the midichlorians allow the Jedi to do. And if this wasn't the case, then you're essentially retconning what Yoda says about how the Force is in all living things, because then everybody potentially would be able to do these things. But they're not things that can be learned. A lot of them are things that are very coming very naturally to a Jedi. So that's why I'm very pro midichlorian, because George from the get-go had a motive about, like, he made it a thing in the Phantom Menace. He wanted to establish the fact, not only was it a backstory to the political downfall of the Republic and the Jedi Order and such, but it's also an explanation to the prophecy of the Chosen One and to how Jedi work and how their powers are kind of a thing and all that, right? So,
yeah, I think that... And I agree. Like, I'm pretty neutral on this particular subject, but I do think that perhaps Lucas, what he wanted to do was, like you said, create some sort of backstory, because we have 4, 5, 6 that by release date came out first, and then we have 1, 2, 3. But providing some sort of I think it's all part of the backstory between, the Chosen One to how he becomes Darth Vader, to how Luke gets involved in the picture and tries to bring a balance to the Force at the end of it all. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just one of his many ways trying to bind the story together.
Yeah, well, it's trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and you have to think, like, from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope, it's a roughly 20-year gap, roughly. So in Order 66, every Jedi, pretty much all of them are wiped out. Who do we have left at this point? We've got Yoda, who doesn't even show up till episode 5. We've got Obi-Wan, we got Luke, and then we have Darth Vader and Palpatine, of course. But there's so many of them left, and only 5 or 6 are left in the whole galaxy. Like, of course there's gonna be, like
a uniqueness.
Like, a uniqueness. Of course there's gonna be things that are forgotten or perhaps not taught because it's just so old, and like perhaps it's what's the point of bringing this back, because it's
well, and there's in The Last Jedi, the very last scene, do you remember the boy who lifts up that broomstick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the argument could be made that, like, yes, there's people out there that would be aware that they have this power, but it would be like the real world where it's like they have this power, they have no idea what it is. And we were talking about this book on the podcast with Ian, a guest that we had about 2 weeks ago, And he was talking about this book called Force Collector. And in this book, there's a boy with this power who he doesn't fully understand. He doesn't know what it is. But whenever he touches an object, he has the ability of psychosis, which if he touches something that has a history, he like of some story to be told, he is able to perceive memories that object has been through. So kind of like how Rey, when she touches the Skywalker saber, that she gets flashbacks of Luke's battle with Vader on Bespin, and she sees the future, the past, and she has the ability to. I wouldn't say it's a solid ability, but the Force enables her in that moment to witness some things. There's people out there with like the ability to use the Force, but again, it's like it's very rare, right? Like it's not like it's every single second person out there that has the ability to use the Force, and the only way to come up with a reason for that is this biological connection from their body to the living Force, which is the midichlorians. And the midichlorians are what the wills of the Force speak to. It's what enables them to communicate with you, right? Like that's what the midichlorian is. It's how Qui-Gon explains it. So like it's almost like how X-Men, it's not that it's believable, but X-Men are a thing because of the X gene. And the X gene is what gives them their powers, right? So like there's a biological connection between them and their power because of this, right? It's not just this thing that shows up. It's like, oh, you can like shoot lasers out of your eyes. How is that possible? You're just like everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's got to be some sort of reason for that. And it's not just this mystical energy field. It's a biological connection that relates to that mystical energy field. So it's also if you quiet your mind, you'll what does Qui-Gon say? You'll learn to hear them. The midichlorians, like the wills of the Force speaking to you through the midichlorians, is that connection, is that bridge point. So
something like that.
Yeah, and so I'm like super pro midichlorian, and I really wish that we had more of that in George's sequels. He would have gone into that a little bit. So yeah. Anyway, do you want to move on to the next one here?
Yeah. The next one we have on our list here, Ewoks. Ewoks. So the article says, are Ewoks cute and furry teddy bear-like creatures or vicious carnivores? Sure, they helped fight the Empire and serve as a symbol of the many alien races oppressed by Palpatine, but they also tried to roast Chewbacca and Han over an open fire and eat them for dinner.
Oh, dude, actually, like Ewoks, they're actually kind of terrifying. Like, even though they look like cute little teddy bears, they were legit about to roast Luke and Han over an open fire, watch them burn to a crisp, and then eat them.
Yeah, like, it's true.
With the Stormtrooper helmets, we can only assume that they ate those people as well, and then used their heads to play bongos on them.
Yeah,
like.
And then C-3PO comes in, and they see him as a god,
yeah.
And so
it's almost like.
Yeah, I'd say they're like cute and furry, but yeah, they're pretty terrorist. Like, yeah, they're a little terrorist. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that moment where I'm trying to think of the moment in the. It's very George Lucas, but if we go to I think it's Caravan of Courage, the Ewoks, Star Wars Legends Ewoks movie that was done back in the 80s. You gave me that on DVD.
Yeah.
Now there's a scene in there where the kid, the guy, his name's Mace, and he sees this little fluffy kind of animal in the hole of a tree. And it's this cute little thing, and he's like, "Oh, look at what's this?" And then he kind of sticks his hand in there, and then this like monster like sucks his arm into the tree and starts like trying to eat his arm or something like that. And the Ewoks help him pull out his arm from the tree, but it's just so George Lucas to have this very like cute, cuddly looking thing that's very approachable, but it's actually just a there's a scientific term for this, how you lure in your prey, basically, and then they're more dangerous than they actually look. That's the thing with a lot of things in nature. They have hidden talents, I guess you could say, or hidden abilities that make them like very much more vicious than they actually look, or so. It's like a peacock.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I mean, even though it's kind of weird that they do look like teddy bears, but I don't know. I think they're kind of cute. Like, I don't have a problem with Ewoks.
No, not really.
Yeah.
All right.
Stormtroopers' combat skills.
Okay. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise. The wise Obi-Wan Kenobi led us to believe stormtroopers were all capable marksmen. Then, for the most part, we see them miss everything and everyone they aim to hit. Was Obi-Wan being a crazy old wizard, or was he thinking stormtroopers would be like the clone troopers he used to fight beside? That's an interesting one. I
actually love that line. Like, it just makes Obi-Wan out to be such a liar. Like, only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise, and then throughout the whole trilogy, they're just missing everything.
Yeah.
I don't really know what he was getting at there with that, honestly.
Yeah, not.
The wise Obi-Wan Kenobi led us to believe stormtroopers were capable marksmen, and then we see them in combat, and it's just a nightmare.
But funny you say that with that line, because if you think about it, in the prequels, we see the clones, not in episode 1, of course, but we start to see them in episode 2. But throughout the prequels, we kind of notice this reoccurring theme of these, in particular, the B1 battle droids, how they're they're made from scrap parts, put it that way. And they're just so dumb. Whereas the clone troopers, like, they're not skilled assassins, they're not horrible, but they've got a good shot, kind of thing. And now that I think about it, if you watch, especially you see it a lot in episode 4, but in the rest of them, like, they're kind of bad shots in the originals. If you think about it, like, in episode 4, when R2-D2 and C-3PO are walking through this ship.
Oh man!
And there's like
walk through that hallway.
There's like 6 or 7 clone troopers. They're all
that's
blasting
like my favorite scene.
And
I love how he looks left,
land, yeah.
He looks right, and then they're just like shuffling across the hall, and then it's like the
you have
most unbelievable scene.
Yeah, you have 6 or 7 guys that are firing at you, easy, right? Not one of them lands a shot. And C-3PO and R2, they just kind of waddle their way across this battlefield, and they've got blaster shots going past them and nothing. And that happens in every movie.
And then, then it's like it's just the same thing with the Geonosian Arena in episode 2. Like, you get them in the in the R2 with the whole rescuing of and rebuilding of C-3PO's head onto his body again.
Yeah.
And it's like, not once do they get shot, and not once does a B1 battle droid come over and start blowing them up. Like, it's really quite funny. Like, those two are something else. But yeah, it's like about this marksman thing. It's an interesting. It's all about what it says here. Was Obi-Wan being a crazy old wizard, or was he thinking stormtroopers would be like clone troopers he used to fight beside? Obi-Wan's been stranded on, at least as far as we know, he's been on Tatooine for 20 years. So the last that he saw armored troopers taking out people or their targets was very much truly precise clone troopers, which were trained on Kamino extensively, and he had the privilege to fight beside them while they were still serving the Republic. And he knows the clone troopers. Like, we're watching the Clone Wars, and it's pretty obvious. Like, Obi-Wan develops a relationship with Cody and with these clones. Like,
they're skilled marksmen, and
they're very skilled marksmen. Yeah. So he's very likely been on this desert planet too long to know that stormtroopers are not clone troopers. And
he was expecting one thing, but got
exactly else. Yeah. So it's all about your certain point of view, right?
Yeah.
And from Obi-Wan's point of view, he's been stranded on this planet for 20 years. Like, he might not know what's going on in the galaxy at this point.
Exactly.
He's been doing his job protecting Luke. So so he's very, I think he's in the right mind to say that they're very precise marksmen, like, because he has no idea how they fight, right? For his, I guess, to defend his argument, you could say that we don't see any bodies lying around for the stormtroopers. It's not like any single one of them died. So, you know, they might not fight very well. Like, they might not shoot accurately enough, but he thinks they do because he knew the clones, and none of them died. So if they were getting attacked back, they're good enough at their job that not a single one of them is dead there. It's just dead Jawas everywhere. So not that Jawas carry a lot of weapons. They might carry like one or two. They have a lot of like immobilizer weapons for droids and stuff, but you know, it'd be enough that they might be able to stun a stormtrooper, and there might be one lying around at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, or they might have like really like primitive scatter guns, which would blow a head off one of them or something. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you'd expect something, right? But no, they came in, they did their job, and then they left.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, pretty much. I guess. I mean, with that one, I do think that on both sides, like there had to have been like clone troopers, perhaps not so much because if you think about it, in episode 4, 5, 6, they're horrible shots. They're just horrible. We definitely see better marksmanship in the prequels, I'd say, but definitely there are certain few who get, you know, they get blasted and like they, you know, but definitely I would say that as far as marksmanship goes, it was, in my opinion, definitely higher in the prequels, and it kind of went downhill after that. And the next topic 5, viewing order. So without even reading the article, it's obviously going to be
oh my
on
goodness,
how to view these movies. Now, this I think is this is another hot topic. Like,
I think this is more debatable than the Han versus Greedo.
definitely.
I don't know why
Yeah.
this is 5th on the list.
This to me, this should probably be number 1.
Yeah.
Like or close to number 1.
Let's keep it shorter because we're running out of time for this topic, for this article. But first of all, let's have you read it, and then
Sure.
we'll just give our opinion.
All right, so the viewing order. With 6 films and 2 animated series, how does one decide on viewing order? Many people suggest going in the order of release, so you'd watch the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and then Star Wars Rebels. Others suggest leaving out the animated series for the first time viewers and watching the films in chronological order, so 1 through 6. Those are far from the only variations. I mean,
What's your opinion on
with this one, honestly, man, I
Just
like,
off the top of your head, if you were to meet someone who never saw a single piece of Star Wars ever, like we're talking no TV shows, no movies, nothing. So how would you introduce Star Wars to them, and how would you have them watch it?
okay.
We're also assuming that they have not heard anything pop culture related to the franchise, so they don't.
So they're going completely blind. They don't know a single thing.
They don't know a single thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, you know what? I would, in that case, oh, that's a tough one, man. Because there's part of me that wants to say, okay, I would watch them 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3. Reason for that is because you'll see the original releases and you'll see the differences between the movies, and the way I see it is when you watch it 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3, you get to see the differences between combat styles. You get to see, you know, differences in force powers, differences in plot, and all this stuff.
You get those differences if you watch them chronologically as well.
Definitely. But I'd say, like, for me as a first time viewer, probably watch 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3. Now, if you're one of those people who wants to make sense of the whole story,
Oh, but you're forgetting we have episode 7, 8, 9, Solo, and Rogue One. We're not talking about the George saga here. We're talking about everything.
Okay, so if we're talking
Like-
about everything, then yeah, hands down. If you're just starting this, you know nothing about Star Wars, including all the new movies, I would definitely say you have to watch it in chronological order, meaning 1 through episode 8.
I've always been in that boat. Yeah. I've always been 100% chronological. And okay, first reason being George wants us to watch them chronologically. when he made the Phantom Menace, actually when he made Empire Strikes Back, I think it was that he started calling them numerically episode 4, 5, 6. So even back then, like it's like, yeah, these are the earlier chapters was it the VHS releases? I think maybe.
Yeah, because around that time he was filming Phantom Menace.
Yeah, around the time he was planning to do it. So yeah. It's at some point though in the last century that he planned to have them be solidly the middle, or at least his end of the series. And but when he initially planned episode 4, he did have like a backdraft outline of the plot points that he ended up using through the prequels. So like there is, and it's very clear, like when you watch the original trilogy, like how Obi-Wan talks to Luke about Vader and such, like there are very solid points that he had written down that he ended up using again in the prequels later on. So, I actually felt like even if we were to only take the 6 films, I would still say do it chronologically, just because, that's the reason why George would want to watch them, but B, like, it's very important to remember that, if you've never seen Star Wars before, you don't know that Luke is the son of Vader, but you also don't know that this chosen one / protagonist person becomes the greatest villain of all time.
Yeah, so it may be a little backwards, and it'll probably be harder to piece it together. But here's
the big shock. Like a lot of people say, like, oh, well, then you spoil the moment, right? You spoil the moment, the reveal of Luke discovering that Vader is his father. But my argument would be, yeah, but if you watch them the other way around, if you watch them in release order, you spoil the fact that this chosen one becomes the biggest, baddest guy in the galaxy. And like that, to me, I think is a bigger reveal. I think if you were to watch Harry Potter and then find out by the last movie that Harry Potter turns into Voldemort, like that would be crazy. Like to think that and then it's like, oh, there's this big time loop and like he's actually fighting himself or something, right? Like it would be kind of nuts.
Yeah.
So not that happens, but it's just interesting to think about that the bigger reveal might actually be this really, really good guy who we see as a young innocent boy grow up, become a Jedi and want to free the slaves and stuff, but you slowly see the tragedy of his life take over.
You see his downfall.
And you see his full downfall. Yeah. And it's that very last moment where he's screaming at Obi-Wan, like, just, I hate you, And that to me is more emotional than any moment that I think I've ever seen in Star Wars history.
Yeah, that's a pretty emotional scene. Yeah,
and so definitely. If we were to take the 6 movies and discard anything else out of the order, I would say it's still chronologically, but 100% chronologically if we count in the sequels, the spin-offs, especially if we count in the animated series. We also got Mandalorian around the corner. Like there's so much. Like you have to do it chronologically. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah. Now I will say this: if you're a fan already and you've seen all the movies and you know what happens, I would suggest because I did a cool comparison about a year, close to 2 years ago, where I watched. I had two weeks. The first week I watched all the movies, like a movie per day kind of thing. And I just the original 6, and I started with 1 through 6, and then the next week I did 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. And I noticed when I did it 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, I noticed a lot of little like Easter eggs in the prequels that you wouldn't know what they lead to going into it. For example, like in episode 2, when there's a scene where the Separatists are speaking with Count Dooku, and they're in this building, and there's a hologram.
Oh, you're talking about the Death Star plans.
Yeah, there's a hologram of the Death Star.
You see those again in episode 3, though.
Definitely,
it's a progression of plot.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like I went years watching this scene multiple times, and then I didn't really like pay attention to it because I know what the dialogue is, I know what they're gonna say, but then I really look into like the little nitty gritty parts of the scenes, and then you see, oh wow, I didn't even notice that.
Was that watching in the release order or?
No, this was the second week where I watched it 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, release order.
Yeah, release order.
Yeah, okay. So watching them chronologically, you say you miss less.
I would say I missed more. Like I knew the plot, I knew what was going down, but these little like hints.
Because if you watch them chronologically, you see through the prequels, you see the hologram twice in episode 2 and then 3, and then at the end of episode 3, you see the construction of the Death Star.
Yes, we see that, but I'm saying like particularly that scene, I didn't catch it for years.
Huh? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, number 6, the prequel trilogy. Let's just skip this one because we're both very pro prequel, and and I feel like this list, this blog was actually, when was this made? This was January 14th, 2015. I feel like these days this blog post would probably have number 6 say The Last Jedi or the sequels instead of the prequel trilogy. But all that aside, so let's talk about the prequels and the sequels just very briefly. Let's keep this under like 3 minutes. This is all I have to say. If you're a solid Star Wars fan, yes, you'll have things that you're less fond of, but I don't think there's anything debatable about the fact that if you're a fan of anything, you eventually just grow to love it.
Yeah,
and that's it. It's plain and simple. Like if you're a fan of something, you can't just hate half of it, right? Yeah. Like you gotta just embrace it. It's like a hockey team or a football team. If you're a fan of their team, you don't give up the moment they lose a game. Like it's just the way it works. Like, you still wear their jersey. You still watch the games. Yeah. If you're a fan of anything, you just stay with it. You just stick to it. You just like, okay, that was a bit of a miss for me. I wish that was different. I wish that was that was a missed opportunity they could have done differently. Like for me, yeah, I got plenty of those, but especially with the sequels, but it's not that I hate them. It's just, it's like, it's more or less that I wish they were done a little differently, but I'll still like watch them. I won't not watch them if I'm taking someone through Star Wars. I've definitely come across people who avoided showing, their kids or their friend or their girlfriend or whatever, these particular films, whatever they may be, the sequels or the prequels, whatever, because they don't like them.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, it's part of the series, the big chunk of it too. If you were to leave out a full trilogy, like, just do it. If you're a fan of it, just embrace it.
Yeah, and that's exactly me with the new ones. I don't like plain and simple, I do not like the sequels at all. But I still watch them because there's a story to tell, and I want to see how they finish it, especially with the 9th episode coming out on December 19th here. So, I'm going to go see it.
Now, here's where the difference is. If you're a fan of George Lucas, that brings it to a different level. If you're a fan of George Lucas, it brings it to a whole new level of looking upon the sequels, but appreciating his 6 films. Yeah. That's a different topic altogether. I feel like if you're a fan of George Lucas, but not Star Wars, then you have every I guess, statement to make about every right to make, something negative about anything Star Wars that's not made by George Lucas. I've not met a lot of people out there who are so solidly a George Lucas fan that they will give up on anything else.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, there's people on both sides of that fence, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Okay. Number 7, parsecs. It's the ship that made the kill run in less than 12 parsecs. Do you even know what you did that line, Han Solo? A parsec is a measure of distance, not time. Fans have been trying to rationalize Han's boast for decades. Is Han lying, or is he talking about how he navigated close to black holes to navigate the Millennium Falcon over a shorter distance than a normal route? What Star Wars topics do you like to debate? Share your opinions and comments. Okay, so a parsec is a measure of distance, not time.
I would say the way he says it in the movie makes it sound like time. Because I remember the first time watching it, like he said it'll do 12 parsecs, and when I heard that, the only thing I could think of was someone at a drag race doing a quarter mile. I just did a 10.5 or whatever. It makes it sound like time, but it's just
Solo actually really much brings reason to this line.
Oh, it does.
So it's not even a debatable topic anymore. Yeah. But if you were to not because you haven't seen Solo,
I haven't. No.
There's Kessel is a planet inside a giant like gas cloud of some kind. Okay. And the only way to navigate that gas cloud is a very particular route. So you watched that Clone Wars episode with Anakin and Ahsoka and Plo Koon when they took on the Malevolence early on in the show, right?
Yep.
And they took that shortcut across space through the what's it called again? Morale Val or something. I'm blanking on the name of that giant gas cloud, but whatever the case is, that's where they encountered those big floating, creatures with the wings. It used to be an old smuggler's route, Anakin explained, and Plo Koon freaked out when Anakin told them the name over the intercom, and then that's when they encountered the giant beast. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And they were trying to...
Like in the asteroid field?
Yeah, no, it's through that gas giant. It was like cloudy everywhere. And so basically the Malevolence, that massive ship that Grievous was controlling, was on its way to destroy the medical center ship for the Republic that was looking after all the injured clones.
Oh, yeah.
And Anakin led a strike team across space through a shortcut to reach the medical center before Grievous could get there so that they could destroy the ship. In the meantime, Obi-Wan was chasing Grievous through hyperspace in the massive cruisers to take him from behind. So Anakin's big plan was that they would take a shortcut across space through this gas giant to get to where they needed to go, whereas Grievous and Obi-Wan had to make multiple hyperspace jumps around it to get to the medical center. So it's like a giant D. If you were to draw a D, the longer way, the longer part of the letter is that big curve.
Yep.
But if you were to go right down just to the bottom, it's a shorter distance, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So when Han Solo says, it's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, he is talking about distance, but he is talking about the distance to like the journey that they had, that normally you have to take to Kessel and then to, I guess, their refueling station or whatever, or to get out of the Kessel space. He took a very unorthodox route on his way off of Kessel, which enabled him to make that trip in less than 12 parsecs. So it's not actually a debatable topic anymore since the release of that movie, but it is on that list. So that is it. A 7, I guess it's end up being 6 topics that Star Wars fans love to debate.
I still think that there's a few more.
Oh yeah, there's always a few more. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say so too. Like there's always something. All right, thanks so much, Diego, for coming back. You're always coming back. So, but yeah, just want to thank you again and make you feel appreciated, because this podcast would not be possible without you showing up nearly as much as you do. So thank you so much for coming on again. And thank you to all you who listen on a weekly basis, especially. Your support is very much welcome. And we have not actually had any feedback or questions sent in to the Twitter feed or to the email, but there are listeners out there. But we encourage you to get in touch and shoot us your questions at theescapepod@outlook.com, or find us on Twitter at SWEscapepodcast. And shoot us a tweet, share this with your friends, and we're just trying to get off the ground and get the Star Wars chat out on the internet. Just to cover a quick news highlight, Star Wars Ewan McGregor had to lie about playing Obi-Wan again. So there's been a lot of articles, top stories on Google, talking about Ewan McGregor and how he has hated lying all this time about whether or not he's coming back as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's obviously been in the talks for a long time. Just wanted to quickly touch up on that, because I know that's really hot news right now, and we didn't actually get around to talking about that today. But Ewan McGregor, you are an awesome guy. We are all super excited to have you back as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you.